I do want to just lean into the draft of the Cleveland Browns. And in that regard, if you just take a look at the draft, if you take a look at that in retrospect, if you hermetically sealed a Cleveland Brown fan, dinner time Thursday night, into a room, sort of like the same room that they put the second player of Fast Money in on Family Feud, right?
No sound in that room.
No sound.
Soundproof booth.
Okay.
Nothing.
Darkness retreat. You put a Brown in darkness retreat. Starting at 6 o'clock Eastern on Thursday.
Deal.
And they are allowed to come out 6 o'clock Eastern on Saturday. All the picks are done. And you wrote down on a piece of paper or, say, created a graphic and showed them the 2025 draft of the Cleveland Browns. They would probably go, all right. I mean, Mason Graham is the third highest drafted Michigan defensive player in the last 30 NFL drafts at 5th overall. The other two drafted higher are named Charles Woodson and Aiden Hutchinson. And any Ohio State fan would know, he's pretty good. As a matter of fact, the second round pick and Quinshon Judkins can just keep running into him in the hallway the same way he did in the horseshoe last November. And in between the first pick of the second night, I don't know if you know Sean Mitchell of the Rich Eisen Show staff. Just ask Smitch how good Carson Schlesinger is. That's all he talks about. Mm-hmm. He's really good. He's basically like first round pick minus, right? Second round pick plus when you're 33rd overall pick in the draft. And he's pretty damn good. He's followed up by Judkins, as I mentioned. How about this one about Quinshon Judkins? The only FBS player with 1,200 or more scrimmage yards and 15 or more scrimmage touchdowns in each of the last 3 seasons. The last one to do it was Travis Etienne, who was a first-round pick. It's the first top 40 pick Cleveland's used on a running back since Nick Chubb.
Worked out pretty good for them.
And you're very happy because that left Trevion Henderson on the board for your team.
Wow, that was
exciting.
And
he's pretty damn good.
He really is.
Harold Fannin Jr. led FBS football with 117 receptions and 1,555 receiving yards last year, both single-season records for a tight end. That's 13 more catches than Tyler Warren had last year. You just probably didn't see much Bowling Green football. He was the MAC Player of the Year. Dylan Sampson of Tennessee, he set school records with 1,491 rush yards and 22 rushing touchdowns. That's a 95-year-old record he broke. He was the SEC Offensive Player of the Year. They got him in the 4th round. And then the quarterback selected around him. But again, you're hermetically sealed. You don't know. As a matter of fact, don't even put the draft number next to him. Remove the number that they were drafted. You don't know what round they were in. How about that? You'd be like, wait a minute. How did we get Shadeur and Mason Graham at the top of the draft? How did that happen? And then you fill him in.
Well,
they chose Dylan Gabriel in front of Shadeur Sanders, and that's when the Browns fan will go, what are they doing? Wait a minute. And we didn't get Travis Hunter, not because Tennessee didn't choose him first overall, causing us to trade out. We willingly chose not to take Travis Hunter.
Am I reading this right?
Oh, but you also have to let him know. You have to let him know on top of all of this that I just read you. You now also have a first-round pick in next year's draft, and it belongs to Jacksonville, which, as you know, drafts in the top 5, if not top 10, damn near almost every year.
Often enough.
What would the Browns fans have to say about that?
Mike just told you.
I mean, it's a pretty damn good draft when you look at it. Okay. Because I could sit here and read you about Dylan Gabriel and Shadeur Sanders' resumes of what they did in their respective college careers.
Yeah, I've been perusing the draft grades over the weekend in the last 24 hours, and pretty much universally, Cleveland has an A for this year's draft.
It's a really good draft. It's really good players, and they're also, been there and done that at some pretty big programs, and just the only thing is, you don't see a team draft quarterbacks in a draft, in the same draft, very often. And it did happen last year. Your Patriots chose Drake May and then the eventual backup quarterback for the Dallas Cowboys and the guy who caused you to pick out of the top 3 in Joe Milton. And now then, it is rare, though, to see 2 rookies taken in the top 5 rounds of an NFL draft. The last time it happened was, in fact, RG3 and Kirk Cousins, chosen 100 picks apart in the first and fourth rounds of the 2012 NFL draft. First time that's the last time we saw it. So now comes what do you do now? What do you do now? Especially since a lot of people thought somebody tapped the Browns on the shoulder and said, you're drafting Shadeur Sanders. And that person, speaking of Tennessee football, is Jimmy Haslam. Especially since, we saw them applauding and the 2-time coach of the year, our friend Kevin Stefanski, wasn't, he was giving a golf clap, or he was giving like a semi-clap. And Andrew Berry looks like Jeb Bush told him to please clap. Please clap.
He looked he wanted to be somewhere else.
And there was much rejoicing.
What did we just do?
This is what Andrew Berry had to say when Mary Kay Cabot asked him if he would term the acquisition of somebody of Shadeur Sanders' name and buzz was a blockbuster acquisition.
I just say the biggest thing for us, we live by our board. We felt like he was a good, solid prospect at the most important position. We felt like it got to a point where he was probably mispriced, relative to the draft. Really the acquisition cost was pretty light, and it's a guy that we think can outproduce his draft slot. So I wouldn't say it's any more than that. Mary Kay, I think. Obviously Shadeur has kind of grown up in the spotlight, but our expectation is for him to come in here and work and compete. Nothing's been promised. Nothing will be given. So I may hesitate to characterize it as a blockbuster. That's not necessarily how we thought of the transaction, but we are excited to work with him.
He was drafted at a cut rate. Because one team, just to name one, passed on him 6 times. We talked about it before. The odds of keeping all 4 quarterbacks are next to 0. Just slightly, almost less than 0, to use the 1980s phrase. And the question is, Flacco's making it. Flacco is making this team. He can be the one to sit there and go, okay, coach, you need me to start game 1, week 1 tomorrow? I'm in.
Here, coach.
Pickett can basically say, oh, I can do that. And Flacco could be like, do you know the offense as well as, say, somebody who won comeback player of the year in it and just about 8 starts in it after sitting on the couch all year? Can you do that? So Pickett's going to be thrown in a mosh pit with 2 rookies, and these 2 rookies are going to have to battle it out, and only one of them is going to make it, I would think. We had Dan Orlovsky on before. He thinks it's possible that Flacco and 2 rookies make it. And that's the thing, too. Everybody thinks, hey, Shadeur, everything's been handed to you. Dion gave you that silver spoon. And, we're going to completely overlook the fact that you were the quarterback at an HBCU with Dion and balled out there before going to Colorado and helping turn a 1-win team into what we currently see today. But let's just to say everybody who has been saying this about Shadeur is right. He's going to have to earn it because a fifth-round selection will not just get in because of who they are. Period. End of story. Certainly if they're looking at some other position that's injury-riddled and they need to have more of those on the roster and less of you. Certainly if you haven't done the work, you haven't shown a work ethic now that you've been around day after day after day. He's going to have to earn it. And Dylan Gabriel, because we're all sitting here thinking, what's Shadeur thinking about finally being drafted by the Browns when they could have had him 2nd overall and 33rd overall and 36th overall and yada, yada, yada. What's Dylan Gabriel thinking? You know what he's thinking? I'm not going to lose out to Shadeur Sanders. I'm the one who wound up on the podium in Manhattan last year, not him. He was only hanging out because he was sitting in between the guy who won it all and Lil Wayne, who, by the way, can ride a mean bicycle. He's not sitting there thinking, oh, I'm just the Washington Generals here to the Colorado Globetrotters. That's not happening.
Good reference.
So, and Kenny Pickett, he's got to be sitting here thinking, am I a hostage again?
Right. Yeah.
I get acquired. The Browns that's one of the first things they did this year when it was time to start hiring other people. First thing they did was flip him and DTR and bring Kenny Pickett in. God bless Kenny Pickett. Introduced on the same day. Russell Wilson's back in the building. He must have been thinking what is happening? Can I escape this guy? And then Russ goes to the Giants. They sign Flacco so they could have at least somebody that knows their offense and is a veteran in their back pocket, and then draft 2 guys. I can't believe they drafted Shadeur after drafting Dylan Gabriel. But hey, there's the value on the board. They're gonna in the board they trust. So where was Shadeur on their board? Yeah. Was he a 5th rounder on their board? Or was he a 3rd rounder and they decided to go Dylan Gabriel over him because of everything that we've heard about the draft process for Shadeur and the interview process? They got a taste of that themselves.
We know that teams talk, players talk, scouts talk, but do you think it would be better off weirdly that he went undrafted?
I was starting to think
I was beginning to think that he probably was sitting there at some point like, let me choose it, because the last place that I think he wanted to go is a spot where there's somebody else that's already been drafted at the position.
Exactly.
And you would be the lone rookie,
right?
Yeah,
trying to duke it out with other vets.
You get to a point where you kind of hope they don't, simply so they can choose that.
They were
spot.
awful close to that. I think they still wanted to hear his name, man, and not when it was a prank call.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents. I don't know how it's going to work from here on out, but that's a Stefanski problem, or first-class problem for Stefanski. But the rest of it, if you just removed the storylines and the actual number of the draft choices and just put it on a list and say, here's your draft class of 2025, Cleveland Browns fans. Oh, and by the way, you see at the bottom, it says we got a 1st rounder from Jacksonville in 2026. You'd go, great. But the rest of it is like, oh, here are the Browns again. Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.